one being more specifically about transaction signing. And so with these two complete, which will hopefully get wrapped up within the next week or so, we'll then be a bit more back to execution mode when it comes to this larger protocol buffer migration project. Right now, the execution of a lot of this work is kind of hard to move forward on until we get some of these architectural designs ironed out and kind of consensus built within the Cosmos community for. But yeah, this is where most of our energy is being put right now within the SDK land. On the Regen Ledger side, the Ecosystem Service Credit RFC is now, the review cycle for that is now closed. So thanks to all who provided feedback on that over the past couple of weeks. We're going to be setting up a review group call to go over comments from the RFC in a more collaborative form. I'll be sharing a link to that in the Telegram, but explicitly would like to kind of like solicit folks who want to be more actively in that conversation. I see Martine on this call. You're definitely on our list for that. And yeah, if other folks from this community kind of want to be involved in a more conversational process around going through all of the comments together and talking through some of the themes on them, let me know. That's kind of where things are at on the Regen Ledger side. And then we also did some work with the CosmWasm in correspondence with the testnet that just closed recently. And there's a reference contract that corresponds to the phase 5 challenge of the testnet, which is a kind of demo prototype for how an eco-data payout escrow contract could look on a CosmWasm chain. So if you're, I know that there was some conversations in the Telegram recently about what the ecosystem, or what the actual like ecological data protocols look like in Regen Ledger, and if there's any hard APIs for that. The answer is we are just not at a point where we have like hard concrete APIs for that. But this contract, which I've linked from this deck, is a kind of example of where our current thinking is for what some of that stuff may look like in terms of, you know, the basics of the fact that it would be a smart contract on CosmWasm, most likely. This is kind of how that stuff might be structured. This is kind of the relationship that an Oracle would play. And so I think that's a good place to look at if those are things that are of interest to you. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. And maybe maybe we can have a conversation about that towards the end of the call a little bit more if there's community members who are interested. Thank you, Corey. Great update. So just congratulations to everybody who participated in the Contrail CosmWasm testnet. There were 78 validators total. 7 people attempted the high skill phase 5 ecostate contract, where people were actually building custom ecological state contracts. And 2 folks, Will and Paul from our open team collaborative, submitted real world Oracle addresses with their software, FarmOS and RSI respectively. We've socialized that both in the Open Climate Collaborative, which was a lot of fun, as well as an open team a little bit. And I'll be writing up for a couple forum posts about that, and I hope that work specifically continues on, and excited. And I think I saw Will on this call, so I don't know if you have any comments or things that you'd like to share about that. Will, you're welcome to. Not to put you on the spot.
I don't have anything in particular, but yeah, I'm excited about moving forward with some of that work and working more on smart contracts and integrations. I think our talk with Open Climate was great with Martine, and yeah, I hope that continues to move forward.
Cool. And just kind of like, this is maybe a good spot to sort of say we're going to be working to create a couple of collaborative sprints between Open Climate, Regen, and Open Team, sort of focused specifically on, I guess you might say, co-developing this API that Corey was talking about, where we're using sort of CosmWasm and the oracleization process of these real world applications, RSI and FarmOS, and other people who'd like to collaborate, and trying to create some sort of open little mini sprints so that in November, when Open Climate Collaborative does a more in-depth, just sort of like focused collaborathon moment, we actually have a set of tooling for all of the people who will come in from around the world to pick up and use to build, you know, ecological contracts and new accounting instruments and new climate accounting instruments, essentially. And so I don't know, Martine, if you would like to just speak to that briefly, and your idea and impression around that kind of, you know, 6-7 month arc.
Yeah, thanks, Gregory. It was great to have you on Saturday and Sunday with Will and Paul. I'll be posting the videos of the session. Let me know. I'll put them on our YouTube video, but if there's a place where I should drop them as well, like a link. I'm not sure if I have the Telegram that I know that you guys use mostly, but happy to do that. I think it was a great productive session. On the road to November, the context is obviously the normal climate summit, COP26, which has been postponed, which also produces the opportunity for the community to still gather and work on climate as if it was a negotiation, and we are going to want to make it the kind of the more crowded event of the year, and the lead up to that with working groups, with SDKs or things for people to start building things and prompts will make that experience a lot richer. If it would be useful, I'm happy to create a working group within the Collabothon wiki so that the people could start seeing about what are the different parts. I did actually remember that I took a picture of that session of a diagram that I started up. I took a picture, I'll post it in, we'll send it over by email to you, Gregory. And then if it's useful for me to digitize it and post it on the working group to see how parts are connecting, then if that would be helpful, I'm happy to do that. I think that would be a good start of a wiki entry.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic, and I'll invite you to the Telegram groups, Martine, and we also have a Discord, both channel and open climate Collabothon, as well as our own server, and so you and I can just communicate that.
That's right.
That.
I'll put a lot of the details on the Discord, and then you can put it, but send me the Telegram as well.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. Cool. Thank you for that, Martine. I'm very excited about this intersection of these sort of three really amazing free open source software communities, you know, Cosmos, Regen Network, you know, the greater Cosmos and Regen Network communities, and the Open Climate Collabothon community.
And one thing that I could add is, we had 3 days of open climate dialogues. We brought in different experts of, you know, from the field, and people started to get, you know, really exciting discussions. I think for November, we're going to try to do the same. So having a bit of a panel around the role of ecosystem state tracking and how it fits within a new economic visioning for society, to bring in value from nature into what currently is not captured by our currency. And I think that that's going to create a bit of traction towards when the hacking happens, and that maybe was not translated well last week. So we'll try to figure out how to build momentum and open for everyone to give feedback and ideas around how to organize that.
Cool. Thank you, Martine. Great. So I'm just going to hop back over onto screen share here and keep going. Cool. So registry application layer updates. Ron, did I see you pop on here? No. Okay. I'll share this section. So as usual, for those of you who are new, we do our blockchain updates, our testnet and larger community engagement updates, and then the registry is a sort of an application that we're building on top of the Regen blockchain to create a registry of ecosystem service credits. And we're doing that in a way that people can sort of like white label and spin up their own registries that interoperate. And so right now we're into the Ringtail Sprint. All of our sprints are named after Australian outback animals. At the moment, we're very focused on credit and ecosystem service markets in Australia, specifically New South Wales. So we've been we always have place names in our sprints. So we're working on the transfer of credit implementation, the coming soon functionality as a React component, implementing buyer sign-in with Auth0 and a post-purchase page upgrade. So all of this is like, the buyer experience of hopping on and buying a carbon credit or a biodiversity credit. That's what this registry does. And the app is live. So if you want to just check it out, it's pretty exciting. You can go to app.registry.regen.network. And you can see the specific projects that the team has been working hard to bring to market. So this is a pretty awesome example of the rubber hitting the road here. Please go check that out and share comments and questions. I think I actually meant to take this out, the science team update. This is from last month, and I didn't get a chance. Open community comments and questions and conversation. We've got about 10 minutes left to our usual 30-minute call. So if people would like to ask questions or have a chat about that API conversation or the upcoming intersection between Open Climate and Open Team and Regen Network or any of the above. So I open up the field if anybody would like to chime in with comments or questions.
Just looking at the app.registry.regen.network, looks really cool. Congrats. That's great.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, it's been a lot of work and the team's been, I'm very excited about that coming to fruition. And Si-Chen, I think that's maybe how you pronounce your name. You hopped on from the Collabathon and you were, I think, I'm forgetting the name of your project, but you're doing renewable energy, open source renewable energy accounting.
Yeah, hi there. So yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm pretty new, so I'm just trying to understand what it is you do and how we could interface with it. But I've started with building an energy sort of verification, and I like to see if that could be something that could contribute to what you're doing. So basically setting up a framework that where you could get sensor data, which is similar to what we've done, and then using that to verify that, I guess the land management was done in a way that is correct or the carbon sequestration is happening. I'm just kind of really fascinated by what you guys do. I'm kind of a city person, but always kind of love nature in theory. So I like to learn more about how we could do this and how we could really use data. I saw your satellite example and thought it was really nice. So I just like to, I mean, are there sensors, or you're currently working with satellite data, but are you envisioning more like on the ground sensors or measurements that could validate the regenerative processes are taking place?
Yeah, I think
output is.
Yeah, I think we sort of are taking it. I mean, when you think about ecosystem science, landscape ecology, Earth observation science, it's sort of an intersubjective science. So you're taking multiple sort of sensory apparatuses. So that could be a soil sample that gets sent to a lab, or it could be a sensor. The folks at RSI and Quick Carbon have some really amazing spectrometer sensors that essentially can be used to detect the amount of soil carbon in the soil through how dark it is. So it lowers the cost of sampling. There's all sorts of flux sensors that actually measure CO2 flux in fields that are very expensive, not cheap.
Okay.
But there's a lot of different pieces, and essentially, we're working in the open team context with these sort of like advanced research farms to be able to bring in that data and use it to advance scientific modeling so that you can correlate that with remote sensor verification of what is happening, like ecological state. So if you sort of think of a dynamic model approach that also can imbibe third-party auditing and lab results, depending on the level of rigor that you need, that's sort of in general the approach that we're taking to take ecological state verification and to reference that with a quantification process around, in this case, the carbon cycle, but you could also think about it in other nutrient cycles as well. That's sort of in general our verification approach, which sort of tracks with the state of the art of landscape ecology and Earth observation science. And the blockchain is to sort of create structured data integrity around that, so you can tell who said what when, whether it's a sensor or a third-party scientist or a geospatial analyst or whatever it is. But we're sort of bringing multiple. There is no way to have like a single sensor approach to just like plop something out in the field and just have it give you the carbon unit. That doesn't really jive with how how complex ecosystems function and how science interacts with quantification of the carbon cycle.
Okay, so do you envision it being some kind of a DAO where there's multiple sensors that each sort of take the place of one voting voice in a distributed authority, or I guess, what does a DAO stand for?
DAO,
you know what I mean, right?
A decentralized autonomous organization.
Autonomous organization, yeah.
Yeah, well, so with our functionality, we have a groups module which allows people to create DAOs, and so you could create an ecological state protocol DAO, where you have that kind of voting, and you can nest that into smart contracts, as we've been talking about with sort of WebAssembly-based smart contracts. And Regen Network itself, you could kind of consider as a DAO. I mean, it's a public blockchain, which means that it is governed by the token holders. So in that way, it is a decentralized governance of the sort of like larger state machine that allows this sort of data integrity and contracting, claims, and markets to take place.
Okay. So is the goal ultimately to be able to create like a carbon offset based on these measurements that would be at least as good, or if not even better in quality than the carbon offsets that people are buying?
That's actually our near term. That's not the ultimate goal, but that's the near term goal with that app that we were sharing about. If you go to there, you can sort of see that we've sort of developed this quantification methodology around grazing and soil health and quantified carbon impacts, and that's turning into a carbon credit that is like an offset credit system.
I can give a bit of, I feel like I have
Go ahead, Corey.
Context to share here as well. So the way that we're thinking about the kind of platform approach that Regen Network is taking, right? Our token, the XRN, is not itself an offset token or like meant to represent any kind of ecological state or credit that corresponds to offsets in any sort of way. It is a transactional token for doing all sorts of operations on the ledger and paying for fees on the ledger. And it's a staking token for our validator pool. Any kind of digital assets that represent offsets or credits as they correspond to ecological state, we are envisioning, in terms of our long-term approach, a world where we're still kind of navigating how permissionless that will be, but the idea is that we are not the ones dictating that. And basically it is, in the most liberal case, fully permissionless, where anyone can say, I want to create some kind of offset token, and then these are the kind of ecological state inputs that I want to factor into my offset token. And maybe I'm a large scale organization that has a lot of cultural capital that people trust. Maybe I'm a body like the UN, and I decide that these are the 5 or 10 different actual like ecological state measurements that I believe in from these sort of certified MRV protocols, or these like individual external auditing bodies that I as the UN have trusted. And I say, when you aggregate all those together in this way, this corresponds to this kind of offset that I want to do. And then the question from Regen's perspective is, in the most liberal case, anybody can do that. And in a more conservative case, maybe our validator pool votes on which one of those are the ones that we kind of want to allow on the chain. But the vision is that it is like, although Regen itself, as Gregory mentioned, is developing our own MRV and our own kind of credit that we're issuing, that is meant to be a kind of end-to-end use case of our own platform where we're kind of trialing that out internally, but it is not meant to be the kind of dictatorial top-down, this is the credit that makes sense for the platform. It's like we are a platform where we want to enable independent users, organizations, communities to issue credits and also to kind of log changes in ecological state on our network. And we want to do that in a way that is both open, such that like anybody can kind of contribute to that, but also does prevent some basic, does have incorporated into it some basic kind of like spam prevention or ways to dissuade just randoms from like, you know, throwing cat memes into ecological state protocols.
Sure,
So,
okay.
Yeah. I don't know if that provides some kind of clarity to the platform approach that we're taking.
Sure, that makes sense. Okay.
Cool.
Great.
Thank you, Corey, and thank you, Sichen. And I just noticed we're just passing the 30-minute mark, which we try to keep these calls to 30 minutes. I welcome questions, comments, and conversation in the Telegram channels. Yeah, I'll sort of call this, adjourn this call for this week. Thank you, everybody, for attending and your interest. And I hope everybody stays healthy and you know, go plant a tree. It's springtime. It's a great time to get some roots in the ground. So yeah, with that, have a beautiful week. And just as everyone knows, we have the community validator call next week, which focuses on our validator pool. We'll likely host a call, and it will probably be focused on Game of Zones because we are participating in Game of Zones. So we'll just, you know, be chatting about that, and people who are interested could hop in at that point. So yeah, thanks everybody, and have a beautiful week.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.